This is an excerpt of a 1-hour conversation I had with a Swedish linguist where we talked about language learning. I hope you find it interesting. How do you learn languages in general? Like, could you give us an overview of how the process looks like in general? Like, what are the most important things for you? How you organize your day and this kind of stuff?
I guess it depends a bit on the level in the language. Like for example, now in Russian, I'm not really a beginner anymore. I'm not advanced either, so I'm like this kind of intermediate stage where I can quite easily follow along in like simplified audio and text. But if it's like, native speaker level stuff, then it's really challenging. So I try. I'm just my main the main thing I do is just I try to get as much exposure as possible, like a comprehensible input, as everyone who is interested in learning languages, they would know this concept. So I try to read every day and listen every day to content, right? So I have some podcasts like to listen to. I'm using this app Link, like a app/website.
Yeah, Steve Kaufman's
That I
app. Yeah.
exactly. I really love it. I think it's amazing. I read Harry Potter now in Russian, using that app, and now I'm almost finished with that first book. For some reason, it's just there. I like the whole book. I think it's not even only the first one, and I think I probably read the second book now without the help of Link.
Okay, but what is it? What is it that's so special about Link? Like, from what I understand, because I've never tried it out, they provide texts in the target language. Some of them in a simplified way, so they have texts for all of the levels, kind of, which is kind of an innovation in a way. So they take the effort to simplify them. And what else? Like, what is it so great about the Link?
Yeah, because you have the text. You can also import your own text.
Okay.
That's a really important thing. I didn't have to do that for Harry Potter in Russian, so because it's just there. But the thing is that every new word is marked with blue, so you can click on it and you get a bunch of translations, and you can decide if you know it or not. And if you don't, you just mark it yellow, and if you know it, you just mark it unmark it, pretty much. So after a while, you will just like go through this, and it's a very satisfying feeling when you like mark a word as known.
Hmm.
Um, and you get like translations of words right in the text, like and only the words that you click on. So you can just click on the words you need. So, and I try to not click on like every single word I don't know, but only the ones I need to know to like follow the story pretty much, because there's
Yeah.
always like a lot of words that you don't really need to like know to follow the story, and it just takes time to like look up all the words. So I really love that. I think it's really amazing, um and I learned so much.
So what is the price of the app? Like, is there? I guess there's a monthly fee, right?
Yeah, so it's like around $10 a month. I think it's a little bit more if you pay monthly, it's a little bit less if you pay yearly, but it's like around $10 a month, I would say.
Okay.
And
Okay, and with
it's
that, you
I
have
think it's
access
only
to all the languages. Uh,
to all the languages, yeah.
okay, and that's interesting. Like, I've as I said, I've heard of the app a few times, obviously because Steve Kaufman promotes it, but I've never tried it out. Like, I don't know, maybe it would be something for the future, because
Mhm.
I've heard some good comments about it. You're not the first one, so yeah, we'll see. But before linked, then how did you digest text? So I guess so you just no, the question would rather be, what did you do with the new words you encountered in a text? So now you don't have link, which registers the words and where you can mark them as known or unknown. So did you have some sort of system to register the words, the new words, whenever you came across them in a book, let's say, or how did you do it before using link?
Well, if you're talking about taking notes, I like to take notes by hand because that's the most efficient way for the brain to remember new words.
Mhm.
In the beginning, it's obviously very important to take notes, I think. Like the more advanced you get, the less important I think becomes.
Uh-huh.
um, because then it's just more about using the language for to do fun things. Um, and to look up words, I think I use for Russian. I usually use reverso con. What is it called? Reverso context. Yeah, or you can just if I listen to a podcast and I hear a word I don't know, I can actually use like Google Translate voice, like voice record voice, try to get the word right, and that's a very
Okay.
quick way of translating a word.
Okay, so but you didn't have, I don't know, like lists of vocabulary or a place where you sort of gather the words, or would you use to
Yeah,
sort of?
like my
Oh
notebook,
no, okay, you did that, but I mean, you
like
did
this.
that exercise, right? Okay, yeah, yeah,
Oops,
yeah. I guess
it's a lot of
everyone.
stuff.
Yeah. Now that we're talking about vocabulary acquisition and learning new words, could you tell me your opinion about Anki, and if you have tried, if not, what do you think about that method of learning new words through flashcards?
Well, it's quite efficient, I would say, to you, at least in the beginning with flashcards. And if you do it in the right way, like which is that you don't just put all the words you don't know in flashcards, like it's like you do it with the important words, right? Because it's quite efficient, you know, way for the brain to remember things with its spaced repetition. But the thing is, it takes a lot of cards. So I would say it can be useful in the beginning, but I don't really use it so much anymore, just because it takes a long time to like make good cards, and I find that it's better to just focus on a lot of input, comprehensible input
Yeah,
instead of making cards.
yeah. I've been using Anki for the last few months, and I I would agree with what you said, that you have to use it carefully, in the sense that well, you mentioned you should only use it for the most important words. For instance, would completely agree with that. Like when like what happens quite often to me is that I would what happened at the beginning, a little bit more not now, is that I would put too many words in there, and then you have such a big pile of flashcards that in the end you don't have the time to go over all of them, and they basically accumulate there, and you end up forgetting some of them because you don't have the time to go over them, and it ends up being such a mess, and it then ends up being boring as well, because you have to spend too much time doing that, and you don't want to spend like half an hour checking out flashcards, because that's not fun. So yeah, so something I learned, and agreeing with you, is that you should try to keep them short, and the amount of flashcards you have, because otherwise it's not going to be efficient. But um, interesting. Okay, so you when you learn, to sum up, like when you learn a new language, you focus a lot on comprehensible input, and both in audio form and in written form. With LinkedIn, probably. Is there any sort of advice you could give anyone who's trying to learn languages? Like, what is for instance, the most common mistake people make when learning languages, and what would you do about it?
There are many mistakes that are very common, but one is to not make comprehensible input your number one priority, because I think it depends a bit who you are. Some people should probably have conversations with natives as the number one priority, and some people should have comprehensible input as the number one priority. And everyone should have those two things as their number one priority. Um, but a lot of people, they focus a lot on like grammar exercises and classes and vocab repetition, and not really that efficient. They're useful, but not that efficient. I think consuming content and actually using the language is like the main way. So obviously in the beginning you can't really do that. So, but as soon as possible, you try to transition into that space.
Yeah, and now that you mentioned talking to natives as being an important pillar of the language learning process, like what app or what do you usually use for that? I guess iTalki, because everyone uses it, but I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. I love ITALKI.
Okay, then we're both on the we both are on the same page then. And how many times do you just have one conversation class per week, or do you try to have like two or a little bit more? Or
I think ideally I would have one per week. I kind of neglected that the past couple of years, but this year I set some like actual language goals, so I decided to start doing that again. And I've been also like a teacher, a tutor on iTalki. I was like for a couple of years, and I don't know. I think it's the perfect way, especially in the beginning when you kind of need this like safe space where not just like go straight out and talk to like random people on the street, because that's really really difficult. So it's very nice and good to have a tutor that you can just like be relaxed with, and who knows how to speak to you in a way that you will understand, and you can sit there and make all your mistakes and it's fine.
Did you like the video? Then leave it a like and check out this one over here or this one. You can choose this one or this one.